Okay, Alex Morgan set to take a penalty kick as she was taken down inside the 18, and a chance to give Orlando a 2-0 lead here, and also her first NWSL goal. As Morgan gets ready now, she's looking away, not even looking at the goalkeeper. Winds, fires, goal! Alex Morgan, her first NWSL goal, and Orlando now leads 2-0. Oh, what a goal by Alex Morgan!
Ho dedicato la mia vita nei momenti più felici ad inseguire un sogno, il mio sogno. Quante volte mi hai deluso, non importa, io ci credo, vivi il mio sogno. Viaggi con gli amici, tanti posti sconosciuti, tutti uniti e innamorati di un sogno, fatto sempre con orgoglio, anche quando sono stanco, mai nessuno può distruggere il mio sogno. mai.
Ho dedicato la mia vita e i momenti più felici ad inseguire un sogno, il mio sogno. Tante volte mi hai deluso, non importa, io ci credo e vivo il mio sogno. Pari grande amore, pari unica e sola, pari nel nostro cuore, non ti lasceremo da sola, facci sognare ancora, facci ridere ancora, pari nel nostro cuore, non ti lasceremo da sola mai. Quanti viaggi con gli amici, quanti posti sconosciuti, tutti uniti e innamorati di un sogno. Canto sempre con orgoglio, anche quando sono stanco, ma nessuno può distruggere il mio sogno. Pari grande amore, pari unica e sola, pari nel nostro cuore, non ti lasceremo
You're watching the Stadtland Soccer Report, and don't forget Monday Live.
sognare ancora.
Watching the Staten Island Soccer Report. And don't forget, Monday Live with your host, Giancarlo Duca. Okay, Alex Morgan set to take a penalty kick as she was taken down inside the 18, and a chance to give Orlando a 2-0 lead here, and also her first NWSL goal. As Morgan gets ready now, she's looking away, not even looking at the goalkeeper. Winds, fires, goal! Alex Morgan, her first NWSL goal, and Orlando now leads 2-0. Oh, what a goal by Alex Morgan! All right, there you go. A little preview. And who else would you want to take a penalty kick other than Alex Morgan, right? Let's see if we can get the screen behind us. Yeah, we got the draft going on behind us. Let's listen in.
Years, hours, training and competing to get to this point. Families eagerly awaits the moment their name is called. Let's not make them wait any longer. San Diego Wave FC, you are now on the clock.
Okay, San Diego's on the clock. Let's see who the first pick is going to be in this year's draft of women's professional soccer.
In 4, 3. Before you get started, tell the people why
Okay,
you should tune in to Tom's
we're on commercial break. We're waiting for the first pick. San Diego's on the clock.
Yes, advice.
I mean, they could probably go again, expansion team, number one, waiting for them to come back. And in the meantime, let's go to the videotape.
You may kiss the bride.
Love you, Dad.
Oh my God.
The Penyas are saving big holiday shopping at Amazon. So now they're free to become
You are watching the Staten Island Soccer Report, and don't forget Monday Live. You're watching the Staten Island Soccer Report, and don't forget Monday Live with your host John DeLuca.
Okay, Alex Morgan set to take a penalty kick as she was taken down inside the 18, and a chance to get Orlando a 2-0 lead here, and also her first NWSL goal. As Morgan gets ready now, she's looking away, not even looking at the goalkeeper. Line, fires, goal! Alex Morgan, her first NWSL goal, and Orlando now leads 2-0. Oh, what a goal by Alex Morgan!
Or in this case, water damage.
Okay, we're just waiting for the first pick. San Diego is on the
Somewhere
clock.
upstairs, there's a broken pipe.
Geico. Save even more when you bundle home and car insurance at geico.com. These little kids would make great stocking stuffers. But how about right now in your mouth stuffers? Happy holidays to your mouth. Not sorry. Reese's.
The CBS Sports app has breaking news. An eventful offseason in the NFL continues. Highlights and in-depth analysis anytime, anywhere. Streaming now on all your devices.
Honored and humbled to be taken number 1 by the Houston Dash. I'm ready to start my professional career in such a great organization.
Emily Sonnet, University of Virginia.
I cannot wait to start a professional career in Rose City.
Rose Lavelle, University of Wisconsin.
I think it's really awesome for all of us to have a place to play after college and be able to follow our dreams. The Washington Spirit select Andy Sullivan from Stanford University. I'm so excited to come back home to the NBA and play for the team that I watched growing up. With the first pick, the Chicago Red Stars select Tierna Davidson. It's such an amazing time to be a women's soccer player in the United States. I'm very excited to start my club career at Chicago. It's my kind of town.
Thank you so much to all the players who have come before us for their hard work in creating a place for all of us to fulfill our soccer dreams. To the Riveters, I'll see you soon at Providence Park, and I can't wait to play in front of you.
I'm definitely something I'll remember for a long time. I'm really humbled and I'm so excited to be a part of the club and part of NWSL.
Welcome back to the 2022 NWSL Draft presented by Ally. Incredible to look back at some of the first picks there, and the first pick is coming up. But first, here is a reminder of the draft order. San Diego Wave, they will go first, followed by Racing Louisville, then the Courage, Racing Louisville with the 4th pick, and Orlando Pride will round out the top 5. All right, now here's a live look in at San Diego as their coaching staff are gathering their final notes. They've already acquired some massive names in the game like Alex Morgan, and today they will add some more puzzle pieces to their puzzle, and the first pick is in. So let's go to Marla Messing at the podium.
With the first pick in the first round of the 2022 NWSL Draft, San Diego Wave FC select Naomi Girma from Stanford University.
Congratulations.
Racing Louisville FC, you are now on the clock.
Okay. There you go. There's the first pick. All right.
So there is the MasterCard celebration. Naomi Goma has been selected number one
Naomi, you're
overall
going to
by
San
the San
Diego.
Diego Wave. Your initial thoughts, Laurie?
Well, not surprising, as we heard Sandra Herrera tell us, we knew coming in it was either going to be Jalen Howe or Naomi Gurma. So exciting for this player to go number one. This is a composed defender, but she can also potentially play in that number 6 role. And with Casey Stoney's team, there was talk about where are the midfielders, but that is something that she discussed the next 4 to 6 weeks. They can either get college players, they can get international players, but Naomi Gurma, one of the best in this draft, and no doubt can she step in and make an impact.
Absolutely. It's been so fun to watch her at Stanford play all the time, and just to see her youth national team experience will help her so much transition. But Paul Radcliffe keeps saying is she's born for the professional game. She's got all the tools. She can distribute out of the back. She's confident. She's fast. She's good 1v1 defending. So she's going to make a huge impact for San Diego immediately.
So this is a massive moment, isn't it? And some massive names have gone number one overall in the past. Sophia Smith, Rose Lavelle, Ali. How high is her ceiling, though? Looking ahead now to what's to come with her and San Diego Wave.
Yeah, first of all, did we all notice she's from San Jose, California, baby? we breed those superstars here in the Bay Area. No, look, I think this is the player, the right pick for San Diego. Massive upside, as you said, asked Poppy. She's got a really high ceiling. This is potentially a future national team center back, and I think it's incredibly important, not just for her, but potentially the U.S. team being partnered alongside Abby Dahlkemper in that center back role, the familiarity that can evolve out of that. And one thing we know with Casey Stoney and the squad they're building, the identity of this team is they want to be able to build out of the back. They want to maintain control of the game through possession. They value and respect the transition game, but to be able to build out of the back is incredibly important to the identity of what they're building. Naomi Gurma fits into that exactly right. And let's remember, I mean, this is a kid that tore ACL just about a year ago. So what we've seen from her still is not even the best. And I think the future is incredibly bright for her. I like this pick. I think it's a good start to the draft.
It's a great point, Ali, because we know that they've already got Abby Dahlkamp, haven't we? So this is more depth to this back line, which we know is so important to Casey Stoney's vision.
And certainly, especially when you think of an extension team coming in, being able to fill those holes, and you want to get the best players you can available at this moment. And as Ali just mentioned, this is a team that's going to want to build out of the back. They're not going to be a defensive team, but they do want to solidify that position. So then you have the players and those strikers that they've already brought in be able to do their business up top.
And let's not forget Sheridan behind them. I mean, the spine of this team now, I really think their focus is really going to turn in that midfield, because if you really look at their roster and what they've been building, that midfield is key for them. So I think in their next, where they're going.
All right. Speaking of next, live looking at Louisville as they get together their final preparations ahead of the second pick. Final things coming together, and the pick I'm hearing is in. So now let's go back to Marla Messing at the podium.
Pick number 2 is in.
With the second pick in the first round of the 2022 NWSL Draft, Racing Louisville FC select Jalen Howell from Florida State University. North Carolina Courage,
Jalen,
you are now on the clock.
Another look
Number
there
2.
at the MasterCard celebration cam as Jalen Howell celebrates being the second overall pick with her family. She's from Florida State, and midfielder. And it was between her, wasn't it, whether we would see her go number 1, number 2, but an absolute massive get for this Louisville side.
Oh, and this is a Louisville team that says we need a number 6. We need somebody that can control the midfield and who can open up this game for us. And that is exactly who Jalen Howell is. He can spread the ball around, good passing range, and magnificent in the air going forward. And she can sit in front of that back line and allow for some of the attack to be able to get behind for transitional speed.
Yeah, she's incredible. The impact she's made on Florida State over the years, 2-time national champion. She's so good on both sides of the ball. She's going to come in as a leader too, and Louisville needs these impact immediate players, and she's going to have a big role on this Louisville team going forward.
Well, talking of immediate impact, Ali, how much of an immediate impact is she going to have on this Louisville side?
Yeah, I expect this player to step into the ranks right away and grab control of the squad. I mean, when you look at this Racing Louisville side, one of the things that they struggled with was conceding a ton of goals. And if you have a player like Jalen Howell's qualities, she's someone that can help your team maintain possession, relieve a bit of that pressure that they were under. I think they were under a bit of duress most of the season last year. So maintaining possession is going to be incredibly critical for them going forward. I think the question for Jalen Howell and the squad is she needs to be challenged. Florida State, I think she looked to be in cruise control. The game too easy. Watching what she can do and stepping up to this next level is going to be really interesting, and I think fun to see evolve because she's going to go in a race in Louisville and have to take control of the reins immediately, and it'll be fun to see how she adapts to that role.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Florida State. We know she was a massive name now. You said it was almost too easy for her, the collegiate level in the end. But what have you heard about her from the coaching staff and just the impact she had not only on her team, but in the league as a whole? Because she was always that one to watch, wasn't she?
Yeah, she's a player that's primed to be able to go into the pro ranks already. Took control of the college game. She took control of Florida State. She knows how to win. Scored a game-winning goal in the semifinals a couple weekends ago in the College Cup. And she's going to step in and have an impact to be able to, again, take this team and say, hey, I want to make it my own. And this is exactly what Louisville was looking for. Another Emily Fox that can come in many minutes, add depth in certain areas, but also start to identify this team and how they want to play, which is going to be a bit more transitional than I think we saw last year.
And fiercely competitive. I think Louisville especially needs a player like her in the training environment to just raise the bar. So I see her coming in and just raising the standard, everything, because that's what she's done with Florida State and what she'll continue to do.
Well, for more on Jalen Howell, let's check in with Marissa Pillar.
Jalen Howell surely is getting ready to get familiar with the NWSL and her new teammates in Louisville, but she does know one player in NWSL pretty well. Childhood friend Sophia Smith went #1 overall back in the 2020 draft to Portland Thorns, and I talked to Sophia earlier this week about Howell entering the draft. Smith said she is so excited for Howell to take this next step in her career. They started playing soccer together at 6 years old, and their soccer careers really have crossed paths from the youth team to national team, now in NWSL. And Smith said the NWSL is getting such an amazing player in Howell, a hard worker, and somebody who really puts the team's needs first. She knows she's going to make an incredible impact. Smith said, I really can't remember the last time we played against each other, but she's looking forward to do that in 2022.
Well, someone that plays beyond 2 years seems to be the overarching theme with Jalen Howell. But let's take a look now then at North Carolina as they're getting their final preparations together. When you're looking at this Courage team, Leslie, what are some of their needs in today's draft?
Well, Jeff McDonald just leaving. First of all, that's hot off the press, so they're going to need someone to fill that number 9 role. But I think when we talked to Sean, he really emphasized the importance of getting more attacking midfielders, right? You lose Abby Dahlkemper, you lose Crystal Dunn, you lose Sam Ewis. They've lost a lot of that spine, and a lot of players have been a big part of that team, including Jeff McDonald. So it's getting more depth, especially in the midfield, and getting more attacking presence.
Yeah, and Carrie Riccaro also going to Angel City, so there's some depth pieces that they want to fill. And again, these are players that can come in and make an impact, but also they have time to develop. Because when you look at their current roster, so even missing some of those vital pieces, they have starters in every 11 position. So, and then 3 first-round drafts so far, barring any extra chaos that we haven't seen yet.
Well, Ali, another big theme of today's draft is, of course, the international windows that are coming up. So teams not only looking for right now, but looking ahead to when those breaks can come and they need depth within their sides.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the story for the NWSL, really, because this league continues to play through those international windows. And we saw last year Portland take advantage of that time because they had the depth in their squad. They didn't skip a beat, and they just kept on trucking through because they had the depth. And that is something that a lot of these teams are looking to solve in this draft, potentially provide a little more competition for those starting positions. But for North Carolina in particular, and speaking with Sean Ayos the other day, he said, yeah, we want someone to come in, and when Debing is going to be gone away for World Cup qualifiers, which we presume will occur this year, or this next season, I should say. So they are looking for like a 10-type player. So there are going to be looks in this draft for those voids to be filled as we progress through. But again, no pressure on these players necessarily to step in and be one of those starters, key players, except for what you would expect, I think, in these first 3 spots.
We are hearing that the North Carolina Courage have taken a timeout. It's our first one of the day. We know that they're coming. But are you surprised to see them take a timeout with their very first opportunity to select someone, Laurie?
Well, not necessarily. Just in the fact that you can look to see if you can move parts around. Is there a trade going to be being made? Or how do they be significant in terms of where, if they're going to take a number 10 or are they going to take a striker in this position? And then how does that fold out with the next picks going forward? And who potentially other teams might take as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tactic too, right? It's putting all of us on our toes.
Well, it keeps us on our toes, yes. But we're expecting plenty plenty more as well throughout the day. But just talking of this North Carolina Courage side, you've mentioned that they've lost several big players through the spine. They do have a little bit of depth, but they're going to need players, right, Leslie, that are going to make an impact in this season early on.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a team that's had so much success over so many years, and Sean's a coach coming in who's had a lot of experience with the youth. He's been an assistant coach, so he knows this team so well. So he's not going to make huge changes. He's kind of probably trying to bring players in to make an immediate impact, but he also wants to develop. He needs depth on the lines, but he also wants to take on, and North Carolina's been a great team in history, knowing that they build players. I mean, look at some of their players, Lynn Williams, Jess McDonald, Crystal Dunn, who have just succeeded on that team and in that environment.
And they've got such a distinct style of play, haven't they? But with this new Laurie, you enjoy things they normally do heading into this new season.
I think there'll be slight changes, of course. Each coach will bring in their own flavor to the team, but success, competition, that's what this North Carolina team is known for. That won't change. And in fact, that's why they're looking for these depth positions to continue to push people that are already in those positions, but also come in and can they have some subtle changes or wrinkles to this current team.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ali, just looking at that and talking of it, how are you expecting North Carolina to approach this new season?
You know, interesting, right? Because this is a team that changed the NWSL a little bit by playing their box midfield. Every team had to adapt every time they faced them. But I do think that the ability to be flexible has proven to be valuable in this league. And I think that's something Sean Mayhouse has recognized, and they don't want to just be one-dimensional. So as you approach this next season, one thing they do have to solve for is, I think, lack of production in front of the goal. I mean, this was a team that actually created a lot of chances, but they weren't necessarily calm and composed in taking those chances. There were so many games last year that they could have put away. They could have got results, picked up points, and they left them in the rearview mirror because they really couldn't get the job done. So I think they do need to bring in some attacking presence. You lose a player like Jess McDonald, you know, someone alongside Lynn Williams. You've got Amy Rodriguez. But again, these players didn't have their best seasons last year. So who is going to be someone that can step into that front line and provide some consistent goal-scoring ability, not just goal-scoring threat, and goal-scoring ability. And I think that is something that they have to look to bring in, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And just talking of Jess McDonald, it's a massive story, isn't it, Leslie? I mean, we were quite surprised.
Yeah, I was surprised. I think in the car yesterday, like, she's been such a huge part of North Carolina, and it's really where she succeeded, right? After leaving Chicago and going to New York and then Courage, and she's been a big piece of this team and their success, and she's also been comfortable and thriving, right? And I think sometimes when you're comfortable, you play really well. But, you know, you look back at the season that the Courage just had, and we don't know if it was her choice or the team's, but it may have worn on her. Maybe she was itching for a change. Maybe she's trying to get back in with the national team. You don't know, but North Carolina's going to miss her. I think her presence on and off.
With the third pick in the first
pick is
round of the 2022 NWSL draft, the North Carolina Courage select Emily Gray from Virginia Tech. Racing Louisville,
Nobody from
you
Rutgers
are
yet.
now on the clock.
So Emily Gray from Virginia Tech has been selected, just 21 years old. She will be pick number 3 for North Carolina Courage. Leslie, your thoughts on this one?
I mean, actually, Lori knocked her better. She's called a lot of her
Surprised they didn't
names,
have the
but so
camera on
you
her.
started out, I'll go off you.
So she's
I'd like to
excited
think
right
of
now.
that. It was
Wherever she
actually,
is.
I think as we've talked to more and more coaches throughout this process leading up to this draft, her name kept coming up. But specifically for North Carolina, when you think about attacking midfield, Davinia being gone for World Cup qualifiers, Denise O'Sullivan as well, all these players in the midfield, they have to have that depth. But this is a player that I think is a little bit of a sleeper in this. I like that she's going this early. She's versatile. She's good left foot. 12 goals this past season. I mean, she can do a lot of damage in that midfield. And with the surrounding and the depth they already have, I don't think she's going to have to be as too much of as a two-way midfielder as we typically have seen her at Virginia Tech. So I like this pickup, and I think she can come in and fight for a spot early on.
Yeah, I love you said sleeper picker anywhere.
Yeah. I love it.
But yeah, I think she's going to bring a lot, especially we talk about that attacking role and that possible 10, and her coming in and making a difference with Davina being gone and the international stuff this summer. So I think this is a good play from Shawnee House.
All right, so there is the top 3 selections. We've got plenty more to come, though, so stay with us. Louisville will be selecting next. They've already had 1 pick already. The next one is coming up. Stay with us. We'll be back with plenty more after this.
Destinations. Paramount Plus.
Welcome back. So earlier, standard defender Naomi Girma was selected #1 overall by the San Diego Wave. A historic moment in this year's draft, and she's standing by right now with our Marissa Pillar.
Naomi, congratulations, #1 overall draft pick in the 2022 NWSL draft. What kind of emotions were you going through leading up to today when your name was called?
I mean, obviously nervous going into it. I was just really excited to hear where I'd end up, and I'm just so thankful to be picked by San Diego and start my career there.
Seeing how San Diego is shaping this inaugural team, what excites you the most about what role you can play with them?
I mean, I'm excited to just come in as a younger player and learn from those that are already there. Really just give my all to the team and learn from the coaches, the staff, and everyone.
I spoke with your college coach, Paul Radcliffe, and he said your best quality is your leadership. How do you hope to transfer that quality over to the pros?
I mean, I hope to help in any way that I can and just continue developing as a leader at the highest level. And yeah, hopefully I can just carry my everything from college through my pro career.
Watching NWSL from afar, as I'm sure you have been, where do you see yourself fitting in this league?
Hopefully as a top defender, yeah, just continuing to make plays and continuing to learn from the players that are already in the league. I think there are so many amazing players in the draft this year and in the league already who I can learn from and just continue to develop with.
The league's adding another terrific player, and you again, congratulations and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
It's so fabulous to hear from Naomi Girma there. We're going to talk more about that because there's been another timeout this time for Racing Louisville. But this is good because we get to talk about the #1 pick overall. I mean, so well spoken there, so excited to join the league and a lot of players to look up to. What were your thoughts, Leslie?
I mean, I want her to play on my team. I mean, she's got the attitude. She's a student of the game. You can tell she's just so excited to be part of an expansion team, but to grow and to one day play on that national team and come into that team and make a difference and learn. And you can just tell she's hungry and will do whatever it takes. And I think as a top draft pick, that's exactly what you want, character and on the field.
Yeah, and I like what you said about learning, because there's going to be two things I think we're going to consistently hear throughout the course of this draft, which is culture of a team, strong culture, and then players that are coming from this college ranks, coming in and can they learn, can they make an impact, as we keep talking about, but also be willing to learn and be a good part of the team. And yeah, we're going to add both of those to the San Diego team.
Well, it's great to hear how she's feeling, but Ali Wagner knows very well how she's feeling after Ali was once the #1 pick overall. Ali, what were your thoughts?
I mean, just absolute relief, right? And you saw the joy on her face. I think the authenticity of Naomi Girma came through in just that quick little soundbite. But one thing that is eluding all of us is look at how many of these first picks have come out of Stanford. I mean, when they were rolling those clips when we came on air, it was Andy Sullivan, you had Sophia Smith, you had Tiana Davidson. I mean, it's been a long list. And one of the things that, in speaking with Jill Ellis and the staff at San Diego is they really think that Naomi Girma is one of the most intelligent players that you could have. And let's think back, you guys. Casey Stoney was a center back herself, so she was personally evaluating all the center backs that are available in this draft. Of course, all the center backs that are available internationally, and they have that much confidence in Girma and the upside of what she could do in the NWSL. Pretty special.
Biggest question of the day so far. Do you think Naomi Girma
I think we should get her back on and ask her to show her. Yeah, we need to. We can get the answer. We gotta get her wear vertical stripes.
I was about to say, Ali, vertical stripes is a theme, isn't it, for you on draft days? She's throwing back the look just a little bit, isn't she? Well, let's talk about the pick so far, though, and talk about Emily Gray. And Ali, I want to get your thoughts on her going to North Carolina. What kind of player are they getting?
I started doing my research on a lot of these players. She was absolutely one that stood out to me in just terms of her comfort on the ball. This is a player that can have two players around her and solve pressure. She can come deep to pick it up. She can play in those more advanced positions, playing a 10. And we spoke to Sean Mayhouse. One of the things that he said he was looking for in his draft was players that can play in multiple positions. And he thought with her, yes, she's good as a 10. She can play as an 8. Could she even possibly play lower as a 6? So I think it's wide open in terms of where they can utilize her, where they see her fitting in best to highlight the qualities of herself, but also the players around her, and Mike and O'Sullivan, and if Dabinia is there. This is a player that I think can step in and potentially start as this season progresses. I think this is a really good pickup. And one thing, too, Poppy, that we saw last year from North Carolina is they did lack a little bit of that final pass quality. Even though you think of Dabinia as being that player, Emily Gray is someone that has that stoic calmness that can deliver that final pass, has the vision to do so. So I think she fits in really nicely with this squad. I like this pick early on in the draft, even though it was considered a little bit of a curveball.
So Emily Gray is heading to North Carolina. Louisville have already had the second pick, but now they've got the fourth pick as well, and it is in. So let's head to Marla Messing.
With the fourth pick in the first round of the 2022 NWSL draft, Racing Louisville FC select Savannah DeMello from University of Southern California. Orlando Pride,
Savannah.
you are now on the clock.
So Savannah DeMello has been selected number 4 overall by Racing Louisville from California. Leslie, a massive get for Racing Louisville.
Yeah, she's that 10 player. I don't think she's been quite as healthy the last couple of years as she was beginning in her career, but she's outstanding on the ball. She did have a huge injury in 2019. I think she tore her Achilles, but she's going to make an impact. She's exciting. She's creative. She's crafty on the ball. So I think this is a good pick for them, especially Louisville was looking for that crafty 10 player. So I think this is a good move.
And there was just a MasterCard celebration, Cam. I mean, she's already got a lot of background behind her, trophies, US flags, plenty more to be added to it as well.
Yeah, she's excited. And, you know, when you're looking at Louisville, this is a team that's wanting to get some of the best players available. Mm-hmm. They talked about getting the number 6. They got that in Jalen Howell, but also some transitional speed. There's still time to pick that up. But Savannah DeMello, she brings in a possession-oriented style of play for this team if they want to have a little bit of versatility in the way they play, whether it's keeping possession. But then she also just adds depth in that position where we saw Cece Kaiser play a lot of minutes in that number 10 role. Can they push her a little bit higher along Ebony Salmon, why Nadia Nadim is getting healthy and potentially away for the Euros. So this adds some dimension to this team that they didn't really have last year and allows them to have more flexibility in the attack.
And more versatility in the attack, Ali, absolutely key, isn't it, for this side?
Yeah, no doubt. And I think at DeMello, you get another player that is really comfortable in possession. So you look at their 2 picks, first off in this draft, and you're getting players that want to control the center of the park. I think DeMello is a player that can break lines off the dribble. She's incredibly comfortable under pressure. So I think this is another solve for them in terms of just trying to control games a bit more. As much as they do want that transitional pace, as much as you have to have it in this league, you also have to retain the ball. And I think that the first 2 solves for them in this draft have been approaching that side of the game as opposed to the transition.
Yeah, absolutely, Ali. Well, pick number 5 is in, so let's now go back to Marla Messing.
With the 5th pick in the first round of the 2022 NWSL draft, the Orlando Pride select Mia Fischel from UCLA. North Carolina Courage, you are now on the clock.
So the official has been selected from UCLA, and here is a look at the MasterCard player profile. This is a big one, isn't it, Leslie? Because Orlando Pride in a complete rebuild, it feels like.
Yeah, rebuild is the right way you can put it. New coach, new owners, Amanda Cromwell, not surprised here, her relationship with Mia, coaching her at UCLA, where Amanda just left. But Orlando's really kind of starting over. They may have still a Marta, they might have a few key players, but they were especially looking in that midfield. And Mia's at number 9, and she's going to be able to hold that ball. They need to score some goals. They need someone up there with Marta to help her. So I think I'm not surprised here. I think it's a good pick.
And with the departure of Alex Morgan, Jody Taylor, who were such a threat up top with Sydney, really, when you look, they could have gotten any line to add depth, to add some sort of player that is going to make a significant difference going into this season. To be official, and I think when you're building a team, Amanda Cromwell's coming in, you want to have that familiarity with some of those players so that you can build that culture, and they have an understanding of what you're trying to do. So the young player that can come in, but she could also be a little bit more of a slow burner, maybe not make it as an immediate impact, but still understand the concepts and the principles that Amanda's bringing in.
Well, plenty more to come on here, but one of the best things about this afternoon is Marissa Pillar checking in with the players that have been drafted, so let's go back to her.
Jalen, congratulations going number 2 overall. You had so much success in the college game. How do you hope that success will transfer over to hopefully success in the pros?
Yeah, I'm psyched. I'm super excited to get started with Louisville. Obviously, I had a great program with Florida State and Mark Krikorian as a coach. I'm just trying to, take everything I learned from the game, from my past games, and bring them to Louisville. And I'm excited to get started.
You've been described as a gritty holding midfielder. How do you hope those aspects help you specifically with the roster that Louisville already has?
For sure. I mean, I think, Louisville has a good team already, and I'm just trying to bring, what I know to do best, and that's, be physical and then also connect the game. Whatever they need me to do, I'm 100% in, and I'm excited to get started, like I said.
Thank you so much for your time, Jalen. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, great to hear from Jalen Howland. Just talking about Florida State and Mark Krikorian, I mean, this is a coach that's been through this process many times. He's seen so many of his players drafted over the years. What makes this program so special, Leslie?
Well, he's a special coach, first of all, and he knows a lot of his players coming to his program do want to play in the next level, whether it's the NWSL, U.S. national team, but he cultivates this culture, right? He's not only going to make them the best player possible, but he's going to create this environment to help prepare them so when they do take that next step, the transition as easy as possible. So building that locker room presence, having, his training sessions. We had him as assistant coach with the national team. He brought something different that we hadn't seen before. They're technical, they're grinders, their mentality, everything, all those pieces he's created at Florida State is special, and that's why he attracts so many great recruits.
And they know how to win. And I think that is the biggest thing. I love what Sandra Herrera said the other day about building teams that want rings. And you get that feeling with Louisville today. They're bringing in players that want to make a difference immediately, but also, again, coming back to the culture of the team, want to come in, be a team player, and can talk less about the facilities that they have in Louisville. So they're really starting to build something special, and that starts with developing some of the players they're bringing in.
All right, well, our next pick is in, so let's go back to Marlon Messing at the podium.
Pick is in.
With the 6th pick in the first round of the 2022 NWSL Draft, the North Carolina Courage select Diana Ordonez from University of Virginia. Kansas City Current, you are now on the clock.
Congratulations.
A player profile. I just saw, Laurie, your eyes light up with this pick.
I love it. UVA players coming out a bit early. True number 9 is the player that can score a goal. She's proven that at every single level. And she'll come in and really fight, I believe, for a position. But when you look at the players around her, Lynn Williams, Amy Rodriguez, very different profile than Diana Ordonez, who can play back to goal, get up the North Carolina wants to get their wide players higher up the field, send balls into the box, and she can do just that. But I also think this pick allows them to be able to mold her a little bit, because you can play behind Lynn Williams and Amy Rodriguez, learn from them. She doesn't have to come in, have a ton of minutes early on. She can understand the physicality of this game, the speed of the NWSL. but she gives them a completely different look than I think that they've had in the years past.
Yeah, I agree, especially with the departure of Jess McDonald, but also they need to score goals. Ali mentioned it earlier, but North Carolina had trouble scoring. They weren't as efficient in attacking third, and that's what she does at UVA. That's what you guys do, right? Is score goals. So I think.
I mean, I did it, but
yeah, Laura, you held it down, right? But I think that's what North Carolina's going to be looking for her to do, is be able to attack and get some goals for them.
Ali, what do you think are goals in the future for them?
I think it's a really good pickup for North Carolina in particular, for all the reasons you guys mentioned. Just a really different footprint, different profile from what they've had in the past, except in one category, which is she can score goals in the air. I mean, this North Carolina team has been one of the most dominant in the air. She's going to bring that threat. But I do like the scrappiness that she has in the 18. Someone that can just capitalize on a half chance, can create the half chance for herself. I mean, this is a very tall, lanky player, but she's got incredible feet. So the ability that she can separate in the box is something special. And then the ability just to hold the ball back to goal play that we're going to see out of her, I think will really help out this North Carolina team that has so often just been a team that wants to get in behind, stretch you vertically. Now you're going to have a little bit of that counter movement, counterbalance that will help them to advance into that attacking third, perhaps in a more controlled manner. And then, of course, in the box, you know, she's got that striker sixth sense. So great pickup by North Carolina.
Yeah, she loves that golden moment. 8 game-winning goals in 2021, leading the nation. Well, the next pick is in for Kansas City, so let's go back to Marla Messing at the podium.
With the 7th pick in the first round of the 2022 NWSL Draft, Kansas City Current select Elise Bennett from Washington State University. OL Reign, you are now on the clock.
So Elise Bennett has been selected by Kansas City, the striker out of Washington State. Here's a look at her player profile. This is a big name. We spoke to some coaches about her throughout the week. Laura Harvey called her a Trinity Rodman 2.0. I mean, that speaks volumes on itself, doesn't it?
Bring it on. Yeah, I hope it's this is awesome. And this is a Midwest player that is from Wisconsin. It's something that's important. Yep. The Chief Hat State.
The Chief Hat State.
Exactly. But this is a player that is from the Midwest. It's something that's important to this Kansas City team, to bring in local talent. But they are a team that needs to score goals as well. That was emphasized so much from Hugh Williams time and time again leading up to this draft, talking with him. And she's athletic. She can play back to goal, strong profile as an attacker, number 9. And she'll bring that. And then she have, much like Carolina that we saw with Diana Ordonez, somebody that can hold the ball and allow for some of the other runners, and it just adds that other dimension in that final third.
Yeah, and it's a massive move. I think Hugh is going to be so excited about this, that she's available. But I think Casey struggled in that attacking third, scoring goals. He really emphasized how important it is to get an attacking threat. And I think this player is exactly what they need. She's a little bit raw. You know, it's going to take her a little bit of time, but she's got that height, she's got that athleticism that I think that they have a lot to work with.
All right, well, the OL Reign is on the clock, but we're going to take a very quick break, so stay with us. Plenty more picks are still to come as the college draft is underway here with the NWSL. We'll be back after this.
Ho dedicato la mia vita e i momenti più felici ad inseguire un sogno, il mio sogno. Tante volte mi hai deluso, non importa, io ci credo e vivo.
and enjoy.
So 7 picks are in the books. Pick number 8 is coming up from the OL Reign, who are on the clock. So Ali, let's talk about the OL Reign though, because Laura Harvey has an interesting approach, doesn't she, with the drafts? What are you expecting to be from their team today?
Oh, well, look, I think she was bummed that Elise Bennett got taken. You mentioned it, Poppy. She was someone that I think Laura Harvey was looking to have fall in the draft, fall to her. In fact, OL Reign moved up in this draft. So I wonder if their eyes were set on Elise Bennett. But regardless, I think with this Reign team, you've had a lot of departures with the OL players that have come over on loan. So they do need to add some quality to this team, especially up top, which sounds pretty crazy because they led the league last year in goals scored. But they can bring in some front runners. As I was building out, what their starting lineup could potentially look like. It does or will not reflect what we saw last year, right? Yes, you're going to still have Megan Rapinoe, you have Balser, but Balser is not necessarily a player that you can count on over the course of the season. So you're going to need some rotation there. Who does that right wing ultimately become for them? They've used Angelina there. She's been inverted at one time. It was Sophia Huerta. Now she's in the back line. So there are some different looks that we're going to see on this OL Reign team. And I think what, Laura Harvey mentioned to us on our call is that she doesn't want these players to feel the pressure to step in and impact immediately. She does like the opportunity to develop them, and something that she had never really had the opportunity to do in the past because they needed players to step in immediately. Now you have the depth in the squad. But I think picking this early in the draft can give you the potential to find a starter in maybe a diamond in the rough and someone in this college rank. So, and I'm really curious to see where she does go with this pick. They lost a defender in McNabb. They lost a sixth in Weatherholt yesterday in the expansion draft. I know both of those losses really pulled at her heartstrings, and you hate to lose those players. So they may move in that direction just to try to fill that void. But early on, we spoke to her, getting a front runner was a priority.
All right, well, let's see what direction they go in because the pick is in. So let's go back to Marla Messing.
Pick is in.
With the 8th pick in the first round of the 2022 NWSL Draft, OL Reign select Janit Kajan from St. John's University.
Ooh, St. John's.
San Diego Wave, you are now on the clock.
So here is a look at Janit Kajan, who has been selected from St. John's University from Budapest in Hungary. Originally, it was interesting, isn't it, to see which direction they're going to go in here. But this is the route that they've decided to take, Laurie.
Yeah, Laura Harvey doesn't lie, because here's a goal scorer, 16 goals in 18 games at St. John's, and she's a goal scorer. And if you want somebody to be able to come in, to be able to fill a need, but also be able to have that time to develop under some of these front runners that you already have. Yes, Ali spoke about it. There's players that are have gone back from loan. There's some vacancies, but you still have a star player or star power up top that she can come in and still be able to learn from, but potentially get some minutes that could be impactful.
I like this pick a lot. I mean, this player, if you watch her, she's lefty, but she's incredibly comfortable with both feet. She's a player that has that footballer IQ. She picks the right service on the right shot. That's why you see the high production out of her. In the 18, she's incredibly lethal. I just think this is one of those players that in Laura Harvey's system, we saw she's utilized the false 9 often with Maroshan, who would drop in. This player in Kajan has the ability to be that back-to-goal presence, but she is a threat in the 18. So I think this fits incredibly well with what we've seen on Laura Harvey since she arrived at the OL Reign side. And Kajan is a player that, yeah, there was some talk behind the scenes, is she of interest, but she has those international ties. So she, coming over, has a little bit of the mentality to be able to be on her own and already evolving into that professional type player that a lot of these Americans don't necessarily get when they go into the college ranks.
Well, more to come on Kajan, but first let's check in with our Marissa Pillar, who's standing by with Emily Gray.
Emily, so great to hear from you. When you first declared for the draft, you said you were ready for a new challenge. What excites you the most about the chapter that lies ahead?
I'm just really excited to learn from these professionals like Sean on the phone mentioned, Davinia. I mean, I've grown up watching her. Just really excited to be pushed to the next level and reach the potential I hope I can achieve.
With your college team this season, you attribute it to half of their scoring. What was the key to all that offensive success?
I think a lot of it was like the work I put in the past 2 off seasons, the last winter and the summer. Scoring goals was something I wasn't always comfortable with, and I grew to really enjoy it this year. And obviously, my teammates helped me a lot as well. So,
how can scoring goals be anything but enjoyable? For sure. And you also worked your way back from an ACL injury. What helped you overcome that rehab?
I'm somebody that really likes, to achieve, overcome different obstacles, and that was just day to day overcoming different things. I think the people around me helped me, and my family as well. So that was a big obstacle, but back now, so ready to attack this next challenge.
Ready to go. You graduated yesterday. You get drafted today. I hope you're celebrating tonight. And it's always good to have another Philly area person in the league. Congratulations, Emily.
Thank you so much.
Well, what a week it has been for Emily Gray. Great to hear from her then. She just touched on she's overcome a lot already, Leslie. How do you see her adjusting to the pro league?
Well, first of all, her first comment, she became comfortable scoring goals and loving it. Love to hear that. And coming back from an ACL, right? That's a huge task mentally. But excelling at this level and what her transition will be into the pros coming for Virginia Tech, I think this transition time for her hopefully is a small window for her. But I mean, this player, you can just feel it in her. She's passionate. She's a workhorse. She's came through over a lot of
It's 3 o'clock.
issues or problems with injuries. So I think this is a huge pick for them.
Yeah, and you never want to wish any sort of injury on any player, but to have to overcome injuries and then be able to deal with that bodes well going into this league, because it is a tough league to play in. There's ebbs and flows throughout the season. It's difficult, and so you need to be able to mentally be able to deal with some of those obstacles in your way. And so Emily Gray, I feel like she has good head on her shoulders. Philly already like that as well.
So we're liking that pick. Still plenty more picks to come now, and up next is San Diego. All smiles in the war room at the minute. So let's see what they've got for us and go back to Marla messing at the podium.
With the 9th pick in the first round of the 2022 NWSL Draft, San Diego Wave FC select Marlene Schimmer from Grand Canyon University. OL Reign, you are now on the clock.
So they're clapping there in San Diego for Marlene Schimmer as they have selected her from Grand Canyon University. They've already had the first pick overall today, and this is their second selection, from Germany. What are your thoughts here, Laurie?
Yeah, well, this is something we've talked about coming into this, about these international players coming in, playing in college here, understanding, have a little bit of nuance to their game from being an international player coming over, not have played in some of the bigger schools, and already having that underneath their belt. And that's extremely beneficial to these NWSL clubs to be able to bring them in and understand, taking away from their homeland, having that experience away, and be able to step in immediately. And not to mention, all these teams have an extra international pick, so
Yeah,
it makes it
now
easier.
up to 5, yep. And Casey Stoney really wanting to be dynamic up top, having that solid playmaking, and that's what she'll bring to this team. So a little surprising pick, but I like it.
And talking of internationals, just Annie, what kind of a different look do these internationals bring to the NWSL?
Yeah, I think it varies case to case, but Marlene Schimmer is a fantastic pick. I mean, this is a footballer. I know she comes from a small school, but how many of these clubs that we talked to said, look, we're looking across the board. We don't care if they're necessarily at FSU and at a Stanford University. So many of these players get overlooked because they're not at big name schools. Marlene Schimmer, you can just tell this is a pure footballer. She has incredible IQ. She's left-footed. She's right-footed. This is a player that can break lines on the dribble. She's incredibly athletic. She is so comfortable, and she's got a ton of sauce. I mean, this is a player that can play on the left, the right wing. I love this pick. And yes, she fills one of those international spots, but I think it's incredibly worth it. We talked about it, Poppy, earlier, which is players coming from the international game. Usually they have more of that culture. They understand the game more, and you can see it in the way Schimmer plays. But also she's already out of her comfort zone, and that transition to the NWSL becomes that much easier. You can take it lock and step. So I think this is a great pickup by San Diego. And she's a dynamic player. You guys are going to love watching this player play if she gets a lot of minutes. And I think she can step in.
All right, well, let's see how she fares in the league. But right now, let's go back to Marissa Pillar, who's standing by with a special guest. So
Sophia, it's so great to have you with us. It was about 2 years ago that your name was called #1 overall. What do you remember most about that experience?
I remember how excited I was just to finally be able to, say I'm a professional soccer player. Obviously, it was a long-time dream of mine, so I just remember being so excited to get started and being able to share that day with the people I love.
We heard a little bit of your acceptance speech earlier in the show, and you thanked the players who had come before you for everything they've done for the game. How are you, now as an experienced player in the league, hoping to create a better environment going forward as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's so awesome that we have this league to be able to, join after we're done in college. So I hope to just be someone that, these players that have just got drafted, someone that they can look to and just be excited about, their careers that they're about to, embark on, and just continue to be, someone that they can look to and ask questions about. I'm still a rookie in this league, in my opinion, so I'm still learning every day. But if I can be someone that these people can talk to, I'm always there.
We hear often about the on-the-field transitions players have to make going from the college level to the professional level, but what off-the-field transitions did you have to overcome?
I think the biggest one was just learning how to be a professional. I think you have to learn how to live your life around this game and learn how to prepare. And I think that's the biggest thing is it's not only what you're doing on the field, but everything that you're doing off the field, I think is the biggest thing that I had to learn.
A lot of great lessons, and you're setting a great example. Sophia, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Brilliant there to hear from Sophia. She is a real role model and inspiration, isn't she, Leslie, for the women that are in the draft today and for those that are to come in the future?
Yeah, and like Ali mentioned, another Stanford Cardinal Bay Area. But yeah, Sophia's one of my favorite players. Yeah, on and off the field. You can see her leadership even as a young player, but ultimately how much she's grown in 2 years since 2019, the impact she's had on this Portland Thorns team, and really that leader, and I think that player that this team is going to have for a long time and that they're going to build off of. But that's what kind of player you want: hungry, competitive, a leader, and still wants to learn and grow.
Yeah, and I like that she talks about learning how to be a pro. And 2020, not a ton of minutes due to the COVID protocols and only playing in the Challenge Cup and a little bit in the fall series, and then she had some injuries. Then comes in 2020, makes an impact, takes advantage of the minutes that she had available when players were gone for international duty, lit it on fire in the NWSL, allowed her to be able to get a call in for the U.S. national team, and then has not looked back. And that's really the trajectory. And that's what you want for these players, to be able to come in, have the minutes, mold themselves, get those minutes that are important for them, and then be able to execute on what they do best.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up, Lori, because we talk about the NWSL being that platform for these players to evolve and ultimately find themselves in the national team conversation. Obviously, that happened for Sophia Smith, but that's also something that I heard from Amanda Cromwell that the official has been doing, and that was one of the reasons she wanted to pick her up, that she has her eyes set on being the starting number 9 for the U.S. team, and every day she trains like that. Every day she's asking for video sessions so she can get better. And this is a player that, like Sophia Smith, wants to come into this league to evolve, yes, but also be on the radar for the national team and really push for that. So this is about these players being able to grow in those environments. Sophia Smith obviously landed in a great spot at Portland. I think the official is hoping she's landing in a similar position over in Orlando with her previous head coach at UCLA.
All right, Ali, well, I'm hearing that there's been a trade, so let's just very quickly bring you this latest news because it's between the OL Reign and Orlando Pride. The OL Reign will receive Orlando's 2023 natural second round pick, a lot of seconds in there, and a player to be named, and Orlando Pride will receive the 10th pick and 2 players to be named. So a lot of questions still around this, Leslie, and I'm sure lots more to come.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, Amanda Cromwell, we talk about Orlando, new coach, new everything. She needs to build this team, with Ashlyn Harris and Allie Krieger going to Gotham, Alex Morgan going to San Diego. She needs players. She needs impact players. She also needs depth. She needs players on every line, so I'm not surprised to see her trade and get a higher pick.
And you need players that have experience in this league, and that is invaluable if you're Orlando Pride, because the biggest thing that's been against them throughout these years is you've had a lot of experienced international players and then these rookies coming in that don't have the time to develop, and there's been a huge gap. And if you can close that, Orlando Pride, they can really be competitive this year.
Well, let's talk big picture with the Orlando Pride then. And Ali, I want to get your thoughts on this because Leslie just mentioned the big names that have left this off-season. So there's a lot to do for them, isn't it? But is this a side that really needed a rebuild? Because although they had all these superstars, it felt like it never really came together for them results-wise, didn't it?
Yeah, and that's always the gamble you make. I mean, they leveraged everything early on to get Alex Morgan, and then you just never really had the supporting cast. And I don't think the internationals have really panned out the way they'd hoped. They've had a lot of misses, perhaps you could say, in the coaching arena as well. So players or coaches that just didn't necessarily come and understand the NWSL immediately. So they've had a lot of misses. And yeah, absolutely, it's going to be a rebuild. When I was able to just touch base with Amanda right before the draft began, I asked her, what is your vision for this side? She said, well, look, I want it to be a lot like it was for UCLA in terms of progressing through the lines with numbers. She said, but the one thing we have to solve for is the ability to transition better. Our counter press was not good. Obviously, they gave up way too many goals. We all saw that with the eye test. You can see it statistically. So they want to work on the defensive side of things and get that shored up first before they even talk about maybe how they're going to move forward, because they know they have goals in Sydney Leroux. They know they have goals or playmaking ability in Marta, even though she is obviously at the tail end of her career. She still has special quality. So this is an Orlando team that, yes, they are in a way starting from scratch, but I think that there's a very clear agenda for Amanda Cromwell and what they're trying to go out and execute.
And talking of the players that are still left, it's a great point that Ali brings up, isn't it? Because now it puts a lot on their shoulders. Sydney Leroux, can we see her step up and really become that main focus up top?
I think so. I think she proved again, even in her latter part of her career, being a mom, she had one of her best seasons yet, right? Talk about putting the ball away and getting the job done. I think there was, in the middle part of the season, I was like, Orlando's going to make the playoffs up until the last minute. So I think Sydney Leroux is and grown into a leader, and I think a lot of the players, especially new ones and the younger ones, are going to look up to her to not only get the job done and score goals, but to lead on and off the field.
And I had Sydney Leroux tagged as my early MVP last year, and she started off on fire throughout the middle of the season as well, really carried the Pride throughout the international breaks or the Olympic break. And then obviously we saw them struggle towards the end of it and were a bit predictable. And I think that's exactly what Ali's talking about with Amanda Cromwell, is that they want to have more than just being one-dimensional. We didn't see them progress in the middle that much, keep possession, and so can they solve for that as well? So we'll see. It's exciting to see who's going to be coming in.
So the Pride looking for some consistency, and their pick is in. So let's go back to the podium with Marla Messing.
With the 10th pick in the first round of the 2022 NWSL draft, the Orlando Pride select Caitlin Cosney from Duke University. Sorry, one more time.
Okay, so Caitlin Cosney has been selected from Duke University. Here's a look at Orlando Pride's pick, 22, from New York. Laurie, your thoughts?
Well, sitter back that's going to come in and hopefully fight for a spot, especially with the departure of Ali Krieger on that back line. But Caitlin Cosney, I've seen her the last several years playing at Duke, calling some of her games great in the air, good service, has those qualities. Much like you think about a Florida State, this is a team that's really kind of has those professional qualities at a college level for her to be able to step in, hopefully get some minutes, but at least be able to sit behind an Amy Turner, who is a fantastic international for them. So there's some qualities here that they have that if you're looking for a player that wants to build out of the back, Caitlin Cosney can provide that.
Building out of the back, but also scoring some big goals. I think scoring against Stanford, East Carolina, these are big goals and set pieces. So, again, probably not a player that's going to make an immediate start, but that can learn from center backs. And again, Orlando needs depth at every line. So she's going to get some playing time,
And Ali, just talking of that, it's a brilliant point that Leslie brings up, because these players not only looking at where they are going to potentially end up, but how much playing time are they going to get immediately is a massive factor for them, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think Orlando is one of those situations where some of these players might have to step in right away. Caitlin Cosney potentially has that ability. I think you guys touched on her assets, and that is really her comfort on the ball. She never seems to get rattled. She seems incredibly calm. She has ability to play forward, break the lines, open the field up. And when you've got players in exciting roles like a Sydney LaRue, you do want to be able to stretch the opposition. Caitlin Cosme has that in her arsenal. And I think that she could be someone that steps in and provides a bit more stability to that back line. We said it before we knew what their pick was going to be. They wanted to shore things up defensively, so I don't think it's a surprise that they went with a center back and someone of the ilk, the quality that Cosme is coming out of Duke program. We know that is one of the more celebrated college programs historically, so she is going to be more seasoned, I would say, in terms of adjusting to the professional game.
And let's talk about Amanda Cromwell, because we know she had so much success with UCLA. What are you expecting her approach to be with this team, Leslie, heading into the new season?
Yeah, I think Ali touched on it earlier, but I think she's going to play very similar to how UCLA played. I mean, they were very successful in her tenure, taking over after BJ Snow, and she knows the college game so well, and I think that she does have an advantage in this draft in building out her roster, so I think we're going to look to her like that. But she has a lot of work to do in front of her, you know? We talk about all the new pieces here, right? And you're working with Marta, you're working with these big personalities, Sydney LaRue. So it's going to be a transition, I believe, for Amanda Cromwell going from the college game, but going to a team like Orlando, having some big personalities. I think she's going to have an adjustment on and off the field, but I have no doubt that she's going to do well with it.
Well, to that point, too, specifically on the field, I like what she said is at UCLA, their best defense was their possession. So I expect to see them keep the ball, want to probe when it's on, but also understand that this is a transitional league. This is an athletic league. You want to be dynamic going forward, so can you layer that in as well? But it really comes down to the players that they have, and Amanda Cromwell has said that, and she knows that, so there's going to have to be some versatility in their tactical adjustments as well.
Yeah, it shows where her priorities are, doesn't it? And when we talk about the players adapting from the collegiate league to the pro league, do you think that there'll be an adjustment period for her as well? And what do you think that'll look like, Leslie?
Yeah, I just touched on it, but I think a big piece of that is big personalities. You know, you're going to start coaching U.S. women's national team players that have been maybe used to a certain environment, and now coming in from the college. It is very different. When you go to the pros, you are on your own. It is cutthroat. It is different. You're not together all day. You don't have classes. It is a very different environment depending on the coach. So hopefully she's taken what's made her successful at UCLA and translates but also has learned from former coaches and former teams that have succeeded and what those differences were.
Does the relationship change between how a coach would speak to the college student athletes and to the pros as well? Because that's a massive part of it.
Yeah, certainly. I think Becky Burley, who was the intern coach last year, even said it. She's like, why am I not getting calls at midnight? Like, this is unusual. She get calls from her players all the time at 4 a.m. being like, what's happening? No, I think she's extremely excited. But I think for Amanda Cromwell, she couldn't come in at a better time, actually, because you are seeing disruption in this team, and she can make it her own. You know, sometimes when you have big personalities, that's difficult, especially when you're coming in. Becky Burley having to come in the middle of the season, just trying to keep the team together, make a few changes, and now Amanda Cromwell can make this team her own. We talked about the official coming in, understanding her principles, being able to speak to that, and then Sydney LaRue, who seems to very much to be on board, wants to lead this team. Marta with all the experience, and that just goes back down the line to Erin McLeod, who will most likely at this point in time be the starting goalkeeper.
Well, it's a lot of moving parts, isn't it, Ali? So just speaking big picture here in all of these points, how long do you think it will be until we see this Orlando Pride being a very competitive team fighting at the top of the table?
I got to see where they go with some of these other picks, what other trades unfold, because, when you look at their roster right now, I'm not too hopeful that this is a team that can compete for a playoffs yet next year. But I think it's way too soon to really judge what this side is going to look like come preseason. So still so many moving parts. And I think with Orlando, what we knew was they had was not working. Mm-hmm. And now they've made some adjustments, and we will get to see what this, if you will, fresh start looks like, or the identity of the players that Amanda Cromwell values as we go through this draft process and start to see what she's really trying to build, what she values the most. The official coming in, good player back to goal, can hold it up. A possession type player, Cosme, another possession type player, can build out at the back. So potentially already a glimpse at how they solve for some of their issues. But still yet to be seen, really, how competitive this Orlando side can be. Even though they started off last year, I mean, they were in the number one position. They were rolling. I already had Cindy LaRue as the MVP. You know, obviously that didn't play out down the line, but
she was still my MVP, okay?
She definitely was for a big part of the season, wasn't she? As to your point, absolutely fantastic. Well, they needed a change. They've made a change. And for more on this, let's welcome in Marissa Pillar.
Something we heard from almost every head coach heading into this draft was the concern if players can mentally handle transitioning into the pros, meaning some of these players are entering from college being the best player on their team, and now they're going to be a little bit lower on that roster. Can they mentally handle not being that number one player? And the good thing about Caitlin Cosme is she's already been through this process. When she entered at Duke, she was not a starter by any means, and she really worked at getting in those minutes. She said she had to learn that no matter what, she was going to put in whatever it took to get herself on the field. So she's already showing promise that she has that mental fortitude to transition mentally into the NWSL.
All right, well, the pick is in, so let's go back to Marla Messing at the podium.
With the 11th pick in the first round of the 2022 NWSL draft, the Orlando Pride select Julie Doyle from Santa Clara University. North Carolina Courage, you are now on the clock.
So Julie Doyle has been selected from Santa Clara University. We're just going to have to bring Leslie back to the desk because she's just running around celebrating. Leslie, what can you tell us about this player?
I mean, first, let's start off with, and Allie, you got me. It's the Santa Clara Bronco. I mean, Julie Doyle, national champion, won in May in the 2020, I guess, season. I think that's a fantastic pickup. Julie is a right-sided player. She's exceptional going 1v1. She can whip a ball in. She makes things happen. I think she has a lot of the tools to be really successful. She's very dangerous. Other teams have to pay attention to her.
Yeah, you can just see from some of the highlights here. Go ahead, Ali.
That's it. I got my Santa Clara jersey. I want you guys to know that. I think fantastic pickup.
Okay.
It's interesting. I know Doyle had aspirations of potentially being in California. Obviously, you know, played her college ball here. There we go.
Ooh.
Just wanted to bring that up.
Leslie, that's yours.
I know. Ow.
2 stars. 2 stars. So I think it's a great pick. Doyle, incredibly good 1v1, good crosser of the ball. This is another player that can live in transition. So I wouldn't be surprised if they convert her into an outside back. I think that not everything is, that is on the table. So Doyle, good pickup, good footballer. I know she traveled in Europe, took the season off after she graduated, and did actually play with an international club over there in the lower division. So she has been training, and I think this is a good pickup. I'm actually surprised she fell this low.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we'll see her playing in almost that right back position, and she gives them a different look. This is a player that Orlando, we haven't seen this type of player that can play specifically on the right side, whip balls in. We've seen a lot of central players for this Orlando team the last few years, and I think this right-sided player for Julie Doyle. And Julie, the weather's very similar, maybe a little bit muddier. You're going to be just fine in Orlando.
Yeah, she's fine. She's a Bronco. Come on.
Leslie, I can't believe you haven't brought your shirt with you.
I know.
Ali's out doing you out here. But you've watched a lot of Santa Clara, haven't you, so far this season? I mean, as a whole, this is a very competitive program, isn't it? What kind of program is she coming from?
I mean, you're looking at 2 national champions right here. Allie and I, back from 2001. Of course it is. No, it's a program that won in 2001 and 20 years later, right? And Julie Doyle was a big piece of that. Alex Loera, who's going to go to KC Current, who's also going to be a big piece of this. Jerry Smith is still one of the best coaches I've ever had today. You talk about coaches that really prepare you for that next level, playing professionally for the U.S. Women's National Team, tactically, technically, everything. As a person on and off the field, Jerry Smith has done that. So I guarantee you Julie Doyle is going to be prepared as possible and going to make a big impact in the pros.
Yeah, I like that she took this year off as well, because we said at the top of the show too, this draft, you know, players get excited, you want to draft them, this is a monumentous day for them. However, you know, there's different paths for everyone, and Julie Doyle needed that time off. Ali said she played internationally a bit as well, but now she's going to come in, be fresh, be ready to fight, and commit herself to this pro team.
Well, just talking of that year off and playing internationally, it also gives the players something extra, doesn't it, Leslie? Not just coming straight from the collegiate ranks into the pro teams.
Yeah, I think it gets you out of your comfort zone. It's always good for all of us to be uncomfortable. And B, it's a different style over there. Everything's run differently depending on what team you're on. Different style, the way that they play. So I think that only is going to help her transitioning back into the NWSL.
And just from a personal level as well, Ali, it's like a maturity level, isn't it? Once you've had that break in between the seasons as well.
Yeah, and sometimes just a little bit of time away from the game can make you rediscover your love for the game. I mean, that absolutely happened for me when I went over abroad to play for the OL team. It was like being away from, I think, the American style, the American culture, and going experiencing a different side of football is incredibly valuable, and it can bring something to your arsenal that perhaps you didn't have before. But again, for Julie Doyle, half of that was just traveling, seeing the world, getting her mind away from it, and then also kind of falling back in love with the game, getting really good touches, clean touches on the ball. And now that hopefully will give her kind of that reinvigorated start as she heads into this next chapter in her footballing career in Orlando.
And it's not just with Julie Doyle that we're seeing this. We're seeing this more and more, aren't we, Laurie? Whether it's between college or even in the NWSL off-season, players want to keep going overseas and playing, getting these minutes still.
Yeah, and it's very individual in terms of what the player wants. They want to continue to play. They want to continue to get those touches. Do they need that because they didn't have many minutes with their NWSL team, or they want to go a different look? And then it goes back to what I was saying as well. It's not even just this path and taking time off. It's also, are we going to see players coming out of college? Are they going to leave? Where we have players coming out of their junior year in this college? So a lot of different paths for these players, and it's exciting because there's so much football around the world now.
And let's just touch on COVID as well, because that has just changed things so drastically, hasn't it, for the draft? I mean, around the world, but for the draft especially. So it's so difficult for these players to know which path they want to take when they've got so many options available to them.
Yeah, and that's why this draft has been so unusual, right? Like a Julie Doyle, she could have gone out in May and decided not to. She had another season to play that she opted out of. Some of the players decided to play that extra season. Now the choice is theirs, and you're starting to see some juniors in this draft, and you're also seeing a lot of grad students in this draft. I mean, how many? I think 9.
We got masters, but
yeah, masters. I mean, double masters. We're gonna have her double masters.
They are taking a timeout, and still plenty more timeouts to come throughout the afternoon, that is for sure. We'll stay with us. We've got one more pick coming up for the first round after this break.
Why choose proven quality sleep from Sleep Number? Because every great play starts the night before.
Soon, you don't want to miss that. And a reminder, if you're watching us on CBS Sports Network, then change over to CBS Sports HQ and Paramount Plus at 4 p.m. Eastern for all of our continued coverage. And welcome back. We are so close to concluding the first round of picks. We've just got one more coming up from the North Carolina Courage, and a lot of players will be looking on, won't they, hoping that they're this final pick in this first round, Laurie.
Well, certainly. I mean, there's 190 declared applicants, I guess you could call them, and only 12 picks so far, or 11. So, yeah, no doubt. This is such a special event for these players and a moment for a lot of them who have been waiting and working for this opportunity.
But as you said at the top of the show, it really doesn't matter once the season starts where this draft order is. But, of course, the first round seems to hold so much weight, doesn't it, in moments like this. And that pick is in. So now let's go back to Marla Messing at the podium.
With the 12th pick in the first round of the 2022 NWSL Draft, the North Carolina Courage select Caitlin Frigulia from Cal State Long Beach. This concludes the first round of the 2022 NWSL Draft.
All right, Laurie, so Caitlin Frigulia has been selected by the North Carolina Courage in the final pick of the first round.
Yeah, well, we've seen them take their attacking players. Now they go with a more of a defensive player. And, North Carolina, 3 picks in this first round. This is the highest picks they've had in college drafts. Traditionally don't have a ton. And, for them, I think they've done a great job. They've gotten the attacking players they wanted, but now they add a little bit more depth. We haven't talked about Malia Berkeley coming in. She was a pre-draft pickup from Kansas City, and so now you have a little bit more depth in that back line, especially when you have an Abby Ursag who's getting a little bit on the other end of her career, and you want to provide depth in those lines.
Yeah, and you love seeing someone from Long Beach State, 2-time Big West Defender of the Year, right? But she's going to learn from, like you mentioned, Abby Ursag, who's got so much international experience. But I was waiting for Sean to make a move for his back line, adding some depth. So I like this. I'm looking forward to seeing how she does.
So, Annie, they've had 3 picks now in the first round. Your thoughts on that final one?
Yeah, I think it's another solid pick. I mean, this is a player that comes out of a good program. It's a well-coached Mauricio Andresio. So this is a kid that they believe in. This is a kid that's versatile, 2-footed, can play anywhere across the back line. So that's incredibly important. Again, going to Sean Nahas's MO, which is they want versatile players that can play in different roles. She can be a center back and outside back. And she's another player that's good in the air. We see how valuable that is in this league, but specifically for North Carolina, it's been a recurring theme already in some of the picks that they've had. So we're not surprised that they are looking to provide depth to some of these positions. They felt they suffered there a bit as the season wore on last year, where they didn't have the rotation. But this is a player that can learn from the veterans that are in her role, but also step in maybe later in the season when they do need to utilize more rotation.
All right, so that does conclude the first round of draftees, and let's take a look at what we have got so far. Of course, it was Nathaniel Gurma who went number 1 overall to the San Diego Wave, then Jalen Howell number 2 to Racing Louisville. But what stood out to you most so far, Laurie?
Oh, I really like the Emily Gray for North Carolina. And I just spoke about it with North Carolina, having some of these picks that they don't typically have in the first round. I think they've done a good job of getting their needs, but also filling some of the depth roles. But Emily Gray, special player in this group that I think some teams had an eye on. Didn't expect her to go this high, but could really step in and be a special player for North Carolina.
Yeah, and I like Elise Bennett. We talked to Hugh, Casey, really needing an attacking player who can score some goals and really hoping to get her Trinity Rodman 2.0, as we call her, but so much talent and so much potential to this KC team, who has so much potential in front of them with their new training facility and everything, and hopefully a coach being named soon. So I think Elise Bennett is a strong pick.
Yeah, we'll wait and see that news. We'll stay with us. We've got the second round coming up, and the Portland Thorns have the first pick of that round. So stay with us. Plenty more to come here on the 2022 NWSL Draft.
Happy holidays from Chewy.
Huh. Is that true? Geico's been saving folks money for 85 years? Yeah, that's right. Wait, so if Geico's 85, that makes you... Are you asking if I'm 85 years old? I mean, sea turtles live to be 150, so... No, I was not. Do I look 85? What? No! You look young. You look young. Or however old you are.
Geico, saving people money for 85 years. On the season finale of Fansville by Dr. Pepper.
Another season almost in the books. Yep. It's going to be a long off season.
Off season?
What do we do in the off season?
Off season.
Relax. We don't stop existing when the season ends.
Yeah, it's not like we live in some fictional town that's part of some elaborate marketing campaign.
What would it even be for? Dr. Pepper?
We're real people. It's not like we're the ice cold Dr. Pepper guy.
Dr. Pepper, the one fans deserve. Old Trapper Beefs, fake protein.
Guys, can we take a quick protein drink? Protein C. I got my beans, my bars, my goose, my clumps, my fizz. I don't know what that one is, but you want it? I'm good, man. I think Goop was a bad choice.
Ultra, what's your beef?
It's not 1,000 lights twinkling that makes their holiday special. It's you. And 20 volts whirring, 10 dishes warming, 8 guests arriving, 42 inches rolling, 1 million leaves blowing, or 1 gift card gifting. If you can't make up your mind, make the holidays yours with a little help from the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
It's your Uncle Cooper. These Cooper and Dormaxes aren't just tough. They're everyday tough. Okay, there's a lot of improvement. Go with the Coopers.
How to get rid of dark eye bags in a few seconds. This goes repairing eye stick. Shake, apply, and lightly pat. Science backed for even the longest, roughest nights. Get your repairing eye stick at letsdisco.com.
Welcome back to the 2022 NWSL College Draft. After today's draft, the countdown will be on to the new season, and it's an historic one as well, the 10th anniversary season. The 3rd annual NWSL Challenge Cup will be from March to May, then a 22-game regular season will follow, and it's the first balanced schedule since 2014, so exciting news there for the teams. The top 6 will qualify for the playoffs, and the NWSL Championship will be the weekend of October 28th. So welcome back. Jen Cooper joins us now. Jen, good to see you. Let's just quickly talk about this scheduling then before we get to some of the picks that we've seen so far. The 3rd annual Challenge Cup is coming up, and it's something that's really been embraced by the league and the fans so far, isn't it?
Well, I love that it's expanding each year, so that with the format we had that first year in the bubble, expanding last year to have the 2 groups going straight to a final. This time, 3 groups of 4 going to semifinals and then a final. Each team getting to play the opponents in their group at home and away. Nice balanced schedule. Just like the regular season. Sure, 2014 was balanced in that you played the teams the same number of times, but this is the first time it's truly balanced in, let's say, an official old school soccer way that you play everybody the same time, same number of times, home and away.
And Leslie, as a former player, just how important is that balanced schedule when you see it come out? Because you, as Jen mentioned, you're seeing home and away. It's sometimes uneven, isn't it? When you're on the road for, how long you're on the road for. So this is really important for the players.
Exactly. You're really hoping that you get more homes and aways, and you're also depending on where you're located in the country, right? Some teams on the West Coast are having to fly back and forth, or maybe stay out in the East Coast if they have 2 games, a quick turnaround. So the schedule piece is a big piece. I think the balance, I think players are very relieved to see that.
All right, well, plenty more to come on that. But first, let's check in with our Marissa Pillar, who's standing by with Savannah DeMello.
Savannah, congratulations. You're heading out to a very young and exciting Racing Louisville team out there. I saw you and Jalen Howe kind of exchanging tweets a little bit already, excited to be teammates. What is your relationship like with Jalen?
Yeah, I mean, I've played with Jalen since I was about 18. We were on the 20s together, and we just always played against each other. Her going to Florida State and me going to USC. So, very good friend of mine.
Excited to see you two come together, and we have to say your reaction in that basement with all of your family was just so amazing. How has this moment come to be from starting playing soccer as a little kid to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, my parents have been my biggest supporters throughout all this. My dad was my coach, so just being able to do that with them here in our house has been just an amazing experience, and I'm just super excited to get started.
It was just so great to see that reaction. That's what we love seeing. And I read that you said you had a renewed sense of energy and purpose after coming back from that Achilles injury that you suffered a while back. What got you through that process?
Honestly, it was a long process, but just having a supportive family and my teammates and coaches, they were just all awesome throughout the whole process. Were with me through it every step of the way, and couldn't have done without them.
You showed a great deal of versatility in college as well. What role do you feel most confident heading into the NWSL?
I love playing the attacking mid role. The 10 role is always the one I'm most comfortable in, but I am very versatile anywhere in the midfield, I think. So excited to go wherever they need me.
That's a great attitude to have, Savannah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Fantastic to hear from Savannah Neville. We're hearing the next pick is in, so let's go back to Marla at the podium.
With the first pick in the second round of the 2022 NWSL Draft, the Portland Thorns select Sydney Nicello from University of South Florida. San Diego Wave, you are now on the clock.
All right, so here is a look at Sydney Nicello. She has been selected for the Portland Thorns, and this is a team that many will want to go to, given the caliber, the championships, and everything that they've won in the past couple of years, Laurie.
Yeah, I mean, Portland has really put themselves on the map as one of the premier women's soccer environments in the world. And Sydney Nicello, this is a player that I thought originally was a hidden gem, and then we kept hearing her name come up time and time again. So I was like, well, obviously not. This is a player that's incredibly fast, who can score goals. And for Portland Thorns, when we talked to Rand Wilkinson, their new head coach, she said, we need to get depth in every line. And obviously up top they lost Simone Charlie and Tyler Lucy in the expansion draft or prior to the expansion draft. So they did fill some holes up top. But Sydney Nicello, a player that can come in and provide some of that depth as well.
Well, Portland, Ali, they thrived, didn't they, over the international breaks, and now they're just adding some more depth to their side.
Yeah, and look, I think in this player, you've got what has been called the best dribbler in the class by some, and with Sydney Nicello, you know, the question mark will be whether or not she can handle the game physically. We know how, challenging, physical the NWSL is. Can she adapt? I think so, because when you look at a team, you more often than not don't want more than a couple of those players that are of this smaller dribbling ilk. And I think with Portland Thorns, you've got a lot of athleticism, a lot of brute, a lot of run around and balance in that squad. So I think this is a good place for her. But you mentioned early on, you want to go to this team because they're so good, but they are so deep. And so that is going to make her finding playing time a little bit more challenging. But this is a player that does have that special dribbling quality. You look for a player that has a unique gift. That is hers. She typically plays on that left wing, likes to cut in on her right. So we'll see if this changes anything in the way that they played last year. They've been in a 4-4-2 diamond. Do they at some point switch into a more versatile system, different systems, 3-5-2? Do they go into 4-3-3, utilize her as a winger? Or is she like a Sophia Smith that can play and run the channels, cut inside, dribble, and create off of the dribble? That it's a question mark and something that'll be fun to see evolve over the course of the season if she does get minutes.
Player and talking to Rian taking over such a prominent program under Mark Parsons and really express how grateful she was to be able to be part of that latter part of the season through the playoffs to watch and learn from Mark and knowing she's going to make some tweaks here and there and putting her imprint in, but that's such a strong winning culture, right? And all those players, how much they want to win, how passionate an environment they've created. So having a player like this that's able to come in, be versatile, and figure out where she can plug in, especially losing Charlie and Lucy, and Christine Sinclair. I think she's going to be 39 now this year. So, looking ahead to figure out their attack going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a brilliant point, and it was interesting, wasn't it, to speak to Rianne. And how crucial do you think that overlap in the time period was where Rianne was able to observe and and now she's got the opportunity to really make her mark on this team.
Well, it's incredibly important for her to be able to step in because as Leslie, we have so many names. I don't even know your name anymore. I can't remember your name. No, as Leslie said, though, this is a winning culture. This is a team that is has the principles in place, and Wilkinson is definitely going to come in and have some wrinkles and nuances to the way that she wants to play. But there aren't going to be overhaul changes across the board. So to be able to understand what that structure and what that environment has been like in the latter part of Parsons' tenure, that is invaluable for Wilkinson, but also the players on this team to be able to have a smooth transition.
And talking of just that change in age, Ali, when you look at it big picture, Leslie just mentioned Christine Sinclair, but we also saw Olivia Moultrie, didn't we, make records, and she was getting involved with the team. So does this show the bigger picture with the Portland Thorns, that they have got depth at every age, not just position?
Yeah, and that was one of the interesting points from Brianne Poppy was we want to bring in some mentors for our younger players. It was no secret that was likely one of the candidates was Olivia Moultrie, and then we want to bring in some players that can learn from the vets that we have in our squad. So Nasello fits in that latter category that is going to come in and learn from some of the experience they have. But when you look up top, I mean, she's definitely not a Sinclair type player. So this is a player that's like a Sophia Smith. And there's an element of maybe Morgan Weaver, and not so much. She's someone that's going to stretch the opposition more. So up top, I don't know that Nasello is going to come in and have that veteran that's going to necessarily take her under her wing, other than showing her how to be the consummate professional, the way Sinclair has done with a lot of the players that have come in. But they are not the same quality, not the same type of player. So I think Nasello is an interesting pick for this squad. I really do, because they do have so many attacking, exciting, bright players. And she's another one that is going to have to come in a battle. And when you look at Tyler Lucy, she didn't get a ton of minutes. Simone Charlie, who started out, was in the Golden Boot race hunt. She ended up getting injured and never really came back and played a role in the latter part of the season for Portland Thorns. So if you're in that depth chart and you're a few scratches below, getting quality minutes is going to be hard to come by. So this is a player that I don't necessarily see impact immediately, but down the line, as you said, Poppy, this is someone building towards the future again for Portland Thorns, so they can maintain that stranglehold at the top of the table that we usually see.
And this depth that comes into play more soon, doesn't it, Leslie, with these international breaks? And we spoke to Rianne about her vision for what's to come over the next couple of months, but especially when several of her key pieces will leave the club.
Yeah, and Portland did a fabulous job last year during the Olympic break of making sure that they continue their play, and Sophia Smith stepping up, and a lot of their bench players embracing their roles, and they're going to have to do the same, but adding that depth is crucial. With everything coming up this summer, it's going to be crazy for every team, but looking at Portland and how many stars, how many international players they have, and how heavy they are in that category, it's even more important for them.
One thing that separated them this past year, and I would date back a couple of years as well, there was a real clear understanding about the principles in each position. So it was easy for players, if they were coming and going, they could slot in. If you hadn't played a ton of minutes as a substitute, come in and then occupy that role. You knew exactly what you had to do in terms of be successful for the team. And you had a lot of good personalities that were, I'm here as a team player.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to show my individual flair, but I am going to be here to do my best for this team. And that's why they were able to collect so many points during those international breaks last year, even going in when they started to lose and drop some and struggle to get some key performances and points later on.
Well, some more news is in, so let's go back to Marla Messing at the podium.
A trade has been approved between the San Diego Wave and Washington Spirit. In exchange for $85,000, the Washington Spirit have acquired the 14th overall pick. With the second pick in the second round of the 2022 NWSL draft, the Washington Spirit select Tanaya Alexander from Louisiana State University. OL Reign, you are now on the clock.
All right, so we're expecting some news to happen, a bit of chaos to happen just very quickly. San Diego have traded their pick, of course, to the Washington Spirit. And I mean, it's all going on, isn't it, Laurie? We're hearing so many different things, but what do you make of this trade and the pick?
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. And, I don't think we expected Washington Spirit, because we didn't expect to see them until the third or fourth round, and talking with her acting head coach, I guess still, Chris Ward. This is a player that he had been high on from the beginning, and that one of the key areas outside of finding some cover for Andy Sullivan in that number 6 position, Tegan McGrady, the left back, who they lost to the San Diego Wave. they needed something else up top to add some more dynamism to unpredictableness going forward, especially alongside Hatch and Trinity Rodman. Alexander can provide that. She's optimistic. I got to call some of her games at LSU. She can be a one-woman show when needed. She's not afraid to take on. And she's one of those international players coming from England that we talked about that has a little bit of that special quality from being overseas. Has come over to LSU, and I like her. She has a lot of fire. She's an exciting player to watch, and she can score some goals in any way, in the box or from outside.
I mean, look at Washington's attack. You just look at Sanchez, Rodman, and Hatch. And now her, I mean, what incredible, first of all, rookie is Trini Rodman, how well she did. So she's stepping into an environment and going to make an impact and learn from these players. So I think I know Chris Ward is very happy.
And just talking of Trinity Rodman, I mean, for these players that are going in the draft alley to Washington Spirit, I mean, they're looking at a Trinity Rodman and thinking, if you can do it, this is my path to follow and I can too.
Yeah, but they're also thinking, where's the room for me? If I'm Tania Alexander and I'm in that squad going, this is going to be competitive. And that is one of the things that a lot of these managers want. They don't want necessarily the starters to feel complacent. I think Tania Alexander offers that. She offers depth. I'm with Lori. I think this is an exciting pick. I think this player has a really high ceiling. I think she's an intelligent front runner. The movements, the channels that she opens up. I think she's, of course, has room to grow, but she's already well seasoned in that area. And oftentimes, a player of her athletic ability doesn't always bring in those other qualities because they don't quite frankly have to. But she's got the savviness, the understanding, and how to create space for herself. So I think this is a really good pickup for Washington. And when you look at also what San Diego got in return, allocation money, I mean, this is a team that my guess is they are stockpiling that cash looking to go into the international market. So it's incredibly interesting, right? Because you have a lot of these coaches, a lot of these clubs say, we're not sure about this draft class. We're not so excited about necessarily the immediate impact, but it is that long-term proposition. And now you're seeing some of the clubs jostle to move up and take picks earlier. So sometimes the murmurings that we hear behind the scenes aren't necessarily reflective of what happens on draft day. And I think we're seeing that play out. But for Washington, big win, a player that fits their style, fits into their system incredibly well. And I think we'll get to go in and push some of those vets. And one of the things that we saw out of Trinity Rodman that she did so well, was her ability to counter press, her ability to disrupt defensively. And I think this is another player tonight, Alexander, that has that pressing ability. And so she is going to slide right in and I think into the system and adapt pretty quickly.
And overall, this is a young team, isn't it? And Leslie, a team that just got stronger, it felt like, as the season went on before eventually winning that championship match.
I mean, you look back and that was just remarkable. I mean, everything to it, everything they went through off the field with COVID, their ownership disputes, everything going on in general, the fact that they were able to get better through it, right? And you look at the relationship between Emily Sonnet and Kelly O'Hara and the success that they had, the way they played, they possessed the ball. Andy Sullivan, how great a season she had and the leader she became. And to see this team go on and win was truly incredible. The future is bright. I hope, Chris keeps that role because he's got to have a lot of credit for what he did at such a crazy time.
And you have to compliment their boldness to go after this. They didn't have a pick until the 38th pick and the 50th, and so they knew coming into this draft there wasn't a ton of needs to be filled, returning almost every starter outside of Tegan McGrady that we spoke about from the championship game. And so this is already a team that has a lot of depth on it, but then you add these players in and you're going after giving away allocation money to get these players. I love it. You strengthen your squad.
Yeah. And Ali, we spoke about Trinity Rodman briefly, but just how well has this team done as a whole to develop this young talent?
Yeah, look, massive fangirl over here for Trinity Rodman. I think she is out of this world in terms of how she played last year and what the future may hold for her. But I think this Washington Spirit team is interesting, right? Because talking to Chris Ward, one of the things they wanted to add was goals. They had, 29 goals last year. I didn't feel like they were lacking productivity in front of the net. He thought that they could improve in that category. Of course, every manager is going to say that. But I would say that defensively, not that there's holes, but they absolutely need to address some depth in the back line. And giving away Tegan McGrady is another piece that they lost in some of these trades and some of these movements. Kelly O'Hara is not getting any younger. So I do think that they need to look at their defensive side of the game. When we look at the playoffs, OL Reign was not happy with how they lost that game in the semis. They thought there were things they wanted to do. They didn't execute. They weren't themselves on that day. Washington Spirit could have easily lost that game. Washington Spirit almost couldn't put away the game against Chicago in the final, So even though it was one of those storybook runs, I do think that, of course, you have to have the stars aligning in order to lift that trophy in the end. I do think that there are things that they have to address in this offseason. If you don't adapt, you get run over. And part of perhaps what they have to look to is not necessarily just that attacking thrust going forward, but I think just some of the solidity on the defensive side of things. I know I'm going to get ripped for that. They were good defensively, but I do think that is something that they need to pay heed to.
Well, what a thrilling championship match it was as well on top of that. Well, for more, let's check in with Marissa Villa.
Hi, Elise. It is so nice to have you with us. Congratulations. You are officially part of the 2022 draft class. I'm sure that feels incredible for you. You went back to school for this 5th year of eligibility. What did you learn about yourself during this past season?
I think this 5th year of eligibility just gave me a chance to really grow into myself and take our team maybe a little bit in a different direction. I had to take a little bit of a leadership role in comparison to other years, and I feel like that not only grew me as a player but as a person.
Right, you were team captain this past season. How do you think those leadership qualities will help you transition even more into NWSL?
I think that I'm just looking forward to growing and learning from the players in the league currently. I know that there's some great players, and I'll definitely be learning and growing every single day that I step out onto the pitch.
You're heading out to Kansas City, who are investing so many resources and money into making that city a great place for players to be. First ever NWSL specific stadiums coming there, world-class training facilities. What are you looking forward to the most in terms of getting there and getting your feet wet?
Yeah, I think you mentioned everything. I think that I'm just so excited to be a part of the club, and you can tell that the ownership and the city is backed by that club, and I think that they're just going to pour everything into the team, so I'm excited to be a part of it.
With any great attacking player, people are always going to want to compare you to someone else. Whose style of play do you try to emulate on the field?
I feel like I just try to be myself and do the best I can with what I have. And I feel like this past year I've grown so much as a player and I became so much more confident on the ball that I'm just looking to create my own destiny and my own journey in the league.
The one and only Elise Bennett, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Brilliant stuff there. Well, Ali, I want to get your thoughts on the draft as a whole first, but let's just pick up with Elise Bennett because this is a Kansas City side that's got a lot to look forward to in the future. Laurie's just walking past me in the background. But they've already got Sam Lewis, haven't they? The stadium news is exciting as well. So things are looking good in Kansas to come for the new season.
Yeah, and even just talking with Hugh Williams the other day, he said, look, it's been less challenging to recruit, whether that's even been locally but also internationally, because you now have the star quality, the star power in the Sam Lewis. You know that you've got this incredible stadium, training facilities coming in. Next year, they're going to be playing on the Sporting KC field. So this is a team that I think is on the up and up. And one thing that we have to pay heed to is last year, they were on that small footprint of a field, the baseball field. They really were in not survival mode, but they were in disruption mode. And so they didn't necessarily get to play the football they wanted with the players that they have in places. So I think they go to this bigger field. They're going to look to open things up, change their system. Of course, we don't know who that coach will ultimately be, but I think he was trying to position them to be a more versatile play in a 4-3-3, bigger shape, maintain possession. And you can do that when you've got a Sam Lewis, a player that can drive out of midfield. When you've got some of those players down your spine, Amy France, Desiree Scott is your sixth, there are some pieces that they're adding. Of course, now with Elise Bennett, just one of those players that is a handful for the opposition, a player that can stretch the lines, get in behind. That was one of the goals of Kansas City, is get a player that can get in behind the opposition. I think they're not going to be able to find that goal scorer. One of the things they lacked was the ability to put the ball in the back of the net. I don't know that they get that pure goal scorer that's ready right now out of this draft. But ultimately, I think Kansas City is starting to find themselves in a new identity, a new blueprint, if you will, for how they want to play, knowing they're going to be moving on to a bigger pitch and ultimately in a new home stadium when it is ready.
Yeah, absolutely. So massive news there. Sam Lewis, as you mentioned, already gone. Elise Bennett will be joining her. Well, if you are watching us on CBS Sports Network and want to carry on with the draft coverage, then make sure you turn over to Paramount Plus or CBS Sports HQ for our continued coverage. We'll be with you for a lot longer. So plenty more picks to come, a lot to look forward to, that is for sure. Well, another pick is in, so let's now go to Marla Messing at the podium.
A trade has been approved between OL Reign and the Washington Spirit. In exchange for $85,000 in allocation money to OL Reign, the Washington Spirit have acquired the 15th overall pick. With the third pick in the second round of the 2022 NWSL Draft, the Washington Spirit select Madison Elwell from Vanderbilt University. Racing Louisville, you are now on the clock.
So Madison Elwell has been selected from Vanderbilt University as the Washington Spirit now have this pick, and this is someone that just had an outstanding collegiate career, Laurie.
Yeah, she certainly did. And she can play in a variety of roles. She can be a winger, she can be an outside mid, or even an outside back. So that starts to fill a little bit of that role that Ali was talking about, some depth in that back line potentially. Gives them some more versatility. But this is a player that Chris Ward consistently spoke about being a player that he wanted, like the attributes that she has to be able to come in, speedy, can play in some different formations, so they'll have the ability to mix things up if they want to play a 3-back or 4-back, and she can fit into that role.
Yeah, I like her versatility, right?
It's 4 o'clock.
She can play on the winger. I think this is a player this is a good pickup. I know Chris was super high on Madison, so I'm excited to see her.
Yeah, he was really high on her, wasn't he? Annie, what are your thoughts on this selection?
Yeah, I think it's another good pickup for them. More depth in terms of the player that can go 1v1, get out players. She's a lefty. Who doesn't like lefties? I mean, if you look at the list of players that are available, I'm pretty sure at some point all the left-footed players are going to go. And Ella fits that, but she is a 2-footed player. So I think this is another, presence that Chris Ward is going to find as an attribute to his squad. She's a crosser. I think, what I liked about her when I watched her play is that she doesn't necessarily force it. She has the pace to be able to press, to be able to break lines, but she makes good decisions. And sometimes you don't get that out of players that are in college that have the ability to take the game over themselves. So I think, we thought she was going to go as a top 10 pick, and she dropped a bit further. So maybe surprising she lasted this long, but I think she was someone, as Leslie said, that Ward was keen on.
And maybe with some of these new players going to this Washington Spirit side, as you said, Ali, that they're probably thinking, where do I fit in to this? How much of an immediate impact do you think she'll make, or is she a longer-term prospect?
Well, listen, I think it really just depends. I mean, these players are going to show up, and I spoke about it because I really believe that there isn't just one path. So just path, but just because you're getting picked up in this doesn't mean that you can't. You have to be able to show up and perform in preseason. Show your worth, what you can provide to these teams, and she has as good of opportunity as anybody else to be able.
When you spend all year serving others, when you lead by example, you don't just land on the nice list, you get rewarded by becoming the top brand in new vehicle quality in the automotive industry. Celebrate all the good you've done this year with a lineup of Ram trucks built to serve.
Get 1 full year of no extra cost Sirius XM on us and 0% financing for 72 months plus no monthly payments for 90 days on the 2022 Ram 1500 Bighorn.
This holiday, Verizon has the deal that gets better and better and better. Get iPhone 13 Pro on us when you trade in your old or damaged phone. Here, the phone everyone wants on America's most reliable network. Better? Better. That's not all. The new iPhone and up to 7 entertainment subscriptions for your family, like Apple Music, Apple Arcade, and more. Better? Better. The new iPhone, the entertainment, and up to $1,000 when you switch. Better. This year, holiday better with Verizon, because everyone deserves better.